Welcome. Thanks for joining me, the Film3 OG. I'm Jordan Bain, and this is the next wave of cinema. One of my favorite people that I've been following rather stealthily, um, probably since 2024 is probably around the time I discovered you. Over on Twitter, then on Instagram,
hmm
and then TikTok. So
hmm
I think I follow you everywhere, and I think your work is amazing.
Thank
I think
you.
you have the most unique voice that I've seen, and
Thank
I can
you.
always tell when someone's copying you. Um, just saw one, I think, early this morning, and I was like, oh, mm. Um,
I see it a
and
lot.
yeah. Once I will say this, I did Juliet, Romeo and Juliet when I was a young actor, when I was starting out. And I was really proud of my Juliet because she was super petulant,
hmm
but I also had an understudy. And so they wanted to put the understudy on, to just give her like some time and all of that. And then in rehearsal, literally saw her copying my performance. I was like, "Excuse me, wait a second. Why is she throwing herself on the ground like a child and stomping and kicking her feet?" And I went to the director. I'm like, that's my performance. And she's like, well, it works. So
Yeah,
I would say that the highest compliment someone can give you is to copy you.
exactly. Yeah, it's funny when I was first like growing my YouTube channel, I think when it's you hit like 1,000 subscribers or something, you unlock the analytics. And I had my YouTube up for I think a couple years before I even hit that number. And so
Oh,
when I finally got access to that tool, the copyright checker that's in there, there was something like 500 videos that had just ripped pieces of my work, and I had no idea for years. And so it was they gave you the option to like DMCA all these people, and I was like, no, I was like if they're finding joy from it, then that's great. And so I like that I've taken a very organic approach to like my marketing. I just kind of put my stuff out there and just let it kind of do its thing, and then it'll eventually find the right audience. So I'm not really like out spending money on advertising or anything like that. I just like it being kind of an organic thing. And my TikTok following has been insane, and there's like a very loyal group of people that will love it. And I think I just wanted to create in a way where people get to know me as an artist as well as the stories that I'm telling, because my humor will kind of come across and the wit kind of comes across, but I want people to be interested in like what I'm making next, you know what I mean, beyond just the individual stories. So I
let's
just
let's
kind of put on blinders on and just create.
and go. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, there's no bad, what is it? There's no bad advertising or so. I don't know what
hmm
that saying is. So again, like people out there um taking you viral is amazing. But I want to roll it back a little bit and ask you about like your process as an artist. Like
Sure.
where did this start and how did you get here? And especially with these just incredible creatures that
Yeah.
that you use these like super imaginative. Obviously, I think the only thing that I can think about, like that reminds me of, is when you go into the bar at Star Wars.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of it's like pop culture references. I mean, I've always been into the arts since I was a kid. I did painting and photography and writing and poetry and everything. Um, and I was very anti-AI when I first heard about it. And
Oh
so
man.
I was like, I had a roommate at the time who was adamantly against it, and we were just this was around the writer's strike when that happened. I think that was like 2020 23,
Yeah,
24, around there.
24.
Um, and I was like, well, let me find out what all this fuss is about. Let me kind of see these tools because I've worked in tech for the past 15 years,
Oh, wow.
built and sold to companies. I'm working on a third right now as a team member. So,
Wow.
yeah, I put down the arts for a while to make money and survive, you know.
I
And
wish
when
I were
this
that
came
smart.
back. Yeah, I was like, well, what can I throw into this that's not because what I was seeing when I first got into it was all of the things that I didn't like about AI, like
Yeah.
people ripping IPs or coming up with their remakes and fan fiction has its place, right? There's a huge market for that, but that if you're going to be spending all of this money on this technology and all these resources, I think the real draw long term is figuring out what new can be created with it and not what it's taking. Like, what are you giving back to the advancement of this technology more than you're taking of what has come before in the training data?
Can I just ask you if you've heard about Engine?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
might be talking about participatory IP platform that's
Yeah.
rolling out very soon. Yes, yes, yeah, exactly what you just said. It's fan fiction on steroids, basically. If you have a original IP, you come in
Hmm.
and world build on
Yeah.
Engine in a legal and participatory way, like alongside like someone who might like to let's say Star Wars is a perfect example of people that wrote all that fan fiction, right?
Hmm.
Then they did not send out cease and desists.
Hmm.
Those things didn't become canon, you know, but in our world, these things can you give people license and permission to build your and
Hmm.
expand your world rather
Yeah.
than sending cease and desist. So yeah,
Yeah. And
you're
I
speaking my
noticed.
language.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed early on too, like when I think it was when I started doing cryptid dating game, which was pretty late in the development of like my IPs and styles, because I had created style models and everything, but it wasn't
Yeah.
until that show where people were like, "Oh, my show is on." And it was a reoccurring theme of like my show, my nightly routine, my thing. And when your art takes a new form in a way that somebody else like wants a piece of it and it's a part of them now, it's no longer yours anymore. And so
Yes.
you have to figure out how to like balance the IP ownership to
Yeah.
also, creating something that people love and look forward to. And even now as it's gotten bigger, I've become almost more protective of it. Like I make
Yes.
less of them than I did originally.
Yeah.
Um, because I know that it's a hit. So I don't really it's not an experimental thing for me anymore. And AI has
Yes.
always been very experimental. And so it's almost like once I have the formula for something that's working, I put it aside and tinker with the next idea until it hits the same thing. And now I look back and I have this back catalog of art styles and stories and characters and lore and all of that's just waiting to be expanded on and developed.
I love your background and it makes a lot of sense then like this world building that you're doing. So when you crossed into realizing these tools were going to be like incredible for your storytelling, when was that about? Because I feel like again, like I can't even believe we're in
I
2026.
know.
I feel like that you really started to emerge as a voice for me. Again, like I said, 2024.
Mhm.
Um, I, but when do you feel like you really embraced it and you started? What year was that, do you think?
I think that was 2024. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had dabbled with it and was testing stuff in 2023, but I mean, it seems so short ago now, but in the world of AI, like 3 years is like 3 decades. Like we've
It,
gone through dozens of model updates
no
and
hands to hands and
yeah,
faces and speaking.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And when I first started, like I was getting death threats both inside the
Oh,
AI community and outside of it. And so I
what?
purposely stayed anonymous for a long until probably about a year ago with the Machine Cinema crew.
Yeah.
I chatted with them, and that was the first time I actually like showed anybody my face. I'm not like a very in the spotlight kind of person. I like the art to kind of do the speaking for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the landscape is much more friendly, even though it's still a little hostile at times, but it's much more friendly than it was when I started. And
Yeah.
I think it wasn't until I really developed my own styles and stories, and now I get messages from people and I treat them like little trophies where it's like I hate AI but I love this. And like that to me is a huge compliment because it's easy to impress other people in AI. It's
Yeah.
difficult to impress somebody who hates AI
Yeah.
to like something that is AI.
Yeah.
And so I've seen the kind of landscape focus on almost this like bubble that people stay in of like, awards and competitions and things like that. And it's a very closed ecosystem. And it's very hard to break out of that because you're dealing with real people that are not in the space and are going to be much more critical and they don't give a second thought about how critical they are because it's all digital anyway. Um, and so that's been my focus for the past 2 years is breaking out of the AI bubble and really looking outward to like, what does the next 5 years, 10 years look like for a creator? Like, I see the changes of like UGC, user generated content and influencers. And I think people are just sick of the facade of it all and the bullshittery of it all, and how fake all of it is. And we're talking about synthetic media, right? So
Yeah.
people can say the same things about what we're making.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a responsibility of those that are in the space to elevate the medium in a way and show the rest of the world like what the product is. Like Sam Altman himself has even said he doesn't know what the revenue model is for AI. I do. Like the products that I'm making, the you put all of these tools together and you create with them, and the media that's created from it is a product that can be sold, and it is IP that can be, created and copyrighted and something new. Like the models that I've used, especially for Route 47, a lot of them have come from old photo albums of
Mm.
growing up. So like I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and so a lot of my image models have come from like old photos of places growing up and just expanding on those ideas and like little things that I would see. So I would go to like Publix and there would be the cake department. And there was this one time there was this disgruntled worker there and they made these like weird faces on all these cakes and frosting. And it was like 2 in the morning. Um, and I was like coming back from a show and I was like, I'm gonna take that frosting, those frosting faces, I'm gonna make something with it. And I started training a model on the different faces of like frosting. I made this like I call it frosting core. And so I essentially just made my own like style
Mm.
from just old photographs of cakes
Mm.
and mixing them with like images from my childhood. And what came out of that amalgamation was this new thing that's never existed before. And to me, like that's the power of AI. Like, sure, there might be a company that's training their data and movements off of films or YouTube videos, but when you can train and have an injection of yourself and your experience into this technology, it's far surpasses any of the original training data. Like I don't think you can point to many things in my work and you're like, I know where this is from, and I try to really focus on new with the technology. What new can be created? How can it be experimental? When Escape had their first awards, which I thought was great because it's peer reviewed and peer nominated. The first year I got the Alchemist Award, I got gold for that.
I
And then this
remember.
past year, for the second year, I got the Pioneer Award, which Dave Clark, as you know, had won that
Yeah.
the first year. So
Yeah.
I don't take those lightly because it's our peers in our space that are looking at this, and I feel honored to be someone that's in that conversation of really like pushing this medium in a way that is not just IP ripping or trailers or tech demos and like it might be rough, it might be ugly, it might be imperfect, but it's real and it's something that's a human making it with these tools, and it's only going to get better as the technology progresses.
You know,
So,
we do very different work, you and I, but I think we do the same in that why we're using these tools for me is story,
mhm,
right? And so yes, I could have probably joined all the influencers and been like, look at this cool clip I did, da, 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 da. But I was always like interested in telling stories. So really the reason I ended up making Sugonage last year, which was also up for one of the Escape AI awards. I can't remember. I won or it was like master or something. I don't know.
mhm,
Anyway, it was simply because no one was telling a story from beginning, middle to end yet. And I was like, even I think Dave was the only one with the first battle. Dave Clark was the only
mhm,
one. I was like, well, there's an actual story there, but I don't see any other stories. So this was January 2020. I made it in December 2024. So this was January 2025. And I had this story in my hard drive about my family that I knew like no one was ever going to give me money to make a story
mhm,
about the colonization of the Cherokee people in 1838 called the Trail of Tears,
mhm,
so that we could have the gold in those mountains. But my family ended up hiding in those mountains. But I told the story about basically the Trail of Tears
mhm.
in
Wow.
4 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
which is like, how do you condense all that in under
Yeah,
5 minutes?
but I was able to because of these tools. And I was also able, and I told this to someone the other day, because it's still, I was able to not have to build a village in the Smoky Mountains, burn it down, and have a helicopter fly by,
Hmm.
while burning. I was able to make that shot in
Hmm.
December of 2024, and it looked incredible,
Yeah.
right? And all of that to me was like, do not fucking talk to me about, that I'm not talented or that I'm cheating or that, you know, I, these tools just gave me the resource to tell a story that I
Hmm.
was not able to tell before.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe you're one of the group that was like, that have been our haters from the beginning, fuck AI, whatever. I'm like, don't tell me that when there are the majority of people in this world have not had opportunities and resources to tell stories, and now these tools give them those
Yeah.
opportunities,
Yeah.
you know?
There's always been a moat, you know what I mean? And you're either in the group that has the money that's making the things, or you don't. And I mean, even though I have a lot of creative partnerships, I mean, my costs as a solo creator last year were like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So it's not something that's like even now is cheap, but
Yeah.
for 20 grand, I was able to make an entire catalog of like hundreds of films and
Okay.
shorts. I mean, I've done 4 feature-length films as a solo creator in 2 years. I don't think I ever even thought about making a feature-length film 3 years ago. If you would have told me a couple years ago that I'd be doing what I do today, I would have not believed it.
I
It's
love
like
that.
it's crazy because it's also a crash course, right? I have to learn
Yes.
editing and sound design, and I've
Yes.
always been a musician, so that part came easy, and I've always had like an artistic flair, so that kind of came easy, and I can tell stories, but the rest of it I had no idea how to do. So I've just been trying to learn in my little bubble on how to just do it.
Speaking of that, let's talk about process because we all have our different workflows and I'm constantly trying to improve mine. And like right now, I feel like I'm 3 months behind. I've got one project I've been trying to make for a year. It's a hybrid project since last January. I'm not kidding you. Not last January, the January before. And I'm all right. Engine is a beast and we're getting it on its legs, but the process of like I have to say there are some people out there in our influencer land who I am so grateful for, right? Because they'll share their process. I'll be like, oh,
Hmm.
thank you.
Hmm.
Because I'm running to catch up with, like some of these things. But process,
Hmm.
like I know you're part of the creative partner programs, but do you like you trained your own on your you're training your own models on your own cakes.
Hmm.
Um, are you how are you doing that? Like you're building this, I mean, if you want to share,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I do
curious.
both open and closed source training.
Yeah.
So for open source, it's, a lot of image curation and creation. Well, it starts with creating like thousands of images and
Nice.
then curating that down to anywhere between, 500 to 2,000 that will make a model. So it's everything from close-ups to environments, inside locations, outside locations,
Yeah.
style models, character models. There's all the tools are available, but they're all scattered everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really the hardest part for anyone coming in is it seems so overwhelming that you have to go here for this and here for this and here for this. And I know a lot of platforms are now moving towards incorporating all of that and they are getting there, but yeah, it's still like very piecemeal. So
Yeah.
I always start with story and style. Those are my starting points. And then from there, I try to create a model around that, which gives me the consistency that I'm looking for
Mm,
because the hardest part is like character consistency, style consistency. And I find that like once you have a model that's trained on a specific style, you can prompt anything, it's always going to come out in that same style, which makes it very easy. And then from there, it's just breaking down shot lists and generating scenes. That's one workflow that I'll use. And then another one is through the curation process. Sometimes I'll have images that I look at, and it's weird, my brain will see a grid of like, a couple hundred images.
mm,
And then I go, oh, well, if you put this here and this here and this here and this here, it tells a visual narrative. Um, and so a lot of times the narratives can come from the images themselves and how you can expand on them. And
mm,
as the tools have developed, like say I have a character that I really like and I want to expand on that specific character, I could bring it into something like Reeve or into Nano Banana and then expand on variations of that character. Throw it into Free Pick, I can see character camera variations.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of my workflow depends on what's needed for the video that I
Good.
am doing.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a lot of the earlier, I mean, lip sync has been something that I've been focused on for a long time. I think I have a pretty good lip
Yeah.
sync like workflow down. But for a long time, it was running the lip sync of the character independently and then running a background scene. And then in the editor, I'm actually doing like the very old school Disney style of like layering
Layering animation.
layering it like a cake, yeah, and just building the background character and foreground. And so a lot of times my narrative stuff will have three videos playing simultaneously on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a very like so because I also create for social media, which you have to break first you have to break this scrolling, and
Yeah.
that's your hook. But then you have to keep somebody engaged on your video, which is a whole other thing. And with social media, storytelling doesn't always match because if you're not getting to the point and respecting somebody's time on social media, they're going to skip right
Yeah.
after it.
Mm,
um and so I've always refused to do 9 by 16. I just find the canvas to be super limiting. And one of the benefits for TikTok that Instagram doesn't have is that you can click and it will turn it sideways into 16 by 9. And I think that's probably the reason why I have 125,000 followers on TikTok and maybe 1,500 followers on Instagram. Instagram is about vibes and like that quick hit,
yeah.
whereas TikTok people are there as like that's like their main scrolling platform. And I'm surprised that more creators aren't focused on TikTok because it is where the prime demographic is right now. Instagram is attached to Meta, and it's an aging platform for millennials, which is
Yes.
great. But I hate to break it to my fellow millennials, you're not the target demographic anymore.
It's so true. I don't love verticals either. I am
Hmm.
a 16:9 maxi cinema
Hmm.
person.
Hmm.
And so I have a really hard time cropping for 16:9. I mean,
Yeah.
for 9:16. Sorry. I don't like 9:16. And what you just said is if they do that for, I don't know, I might have to like hit you up on another day and be like,
Yeah.
give me a tip on TikTok because I've known for like 4 years that TikTok was probably where that and YouTube are probably where I needed to
Yeah.
be tapping.
Yeah. And TikTok, once they flip into 16 by 9, they can't easily flip away. You can't scroll away from it. You have to go out, back out to 9 by 16 and then scroll. So if you can get somebody to click that and convert it, they'll
Yeah.
stay on. And so I have TikTok videos that are in 16 by 9, over 5 minutes long, that have like over 1 million views.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this again about your work. Incredibly unique,
Thank you.
incredibly wonderful. I think that I mean, I don't think everybody's going to have that experience
Yeah,
that you're
no, it's
having.
definitely hard. I mean, you have to get someone with the hook, and then the story has to be engaging. And even with my characters being as unique as they are, that's kind of the point that I was to kind of circle back of having the different layers is like I'll use Sad Steve for as an example. Like very tough character model to use because of the character face, hard to lip sync, had to run him separately. But then he's also in this like taxidermy ice cream shop, and he's got these taxidermy heads, and so if he's talking for 30 seconds and that's the only thing that's happening on the screen, someone's going to get bored of that. And so
Mm,
I came up with the idea of like the heads in the background's always doing something different, whether it's like the eyes are glowing or they're alive even. And so people, the first time I did it, someone's like, are those heads moving in the background while he's talking? Like people notice that stuff immediately. And so for social media, it's about creating multiple engagement points in a film, which in a way traditional media has never done. The action on the scene is what they want you to see, and it's not about some of the other things. But some of the best directors that I've seen, some of the best films, are always including almost like a second narrative, like a meta narrative,
mm,
in their stories of
mhm.
things that are happening in the background, and that tells its own story.
I
So
mean,
I try to lean on that.
think about the Orson Welles shot, the one that's so famous, right?
Hmm.
From the window and the little
Yeah.
boy and playing in the snow and then pulling all the way and he disappears, right? And they come all the way to the foreground and then suddenly the kid appears back like the absolutely what you're talking about. The
Yep.
brilliance of
Exactly.
that framing is nuts. So aside from your sort of always being an artist and now you're like in tech and you've been doing amazing, I feel like you've been doing amazing, innovative work, like what you just described about your workflows, the way you've been building training your models. Like you're thinking ahead of the curve of a lot of people. A lot of people are just trying to catch up, right?
Hmm.
So positioning yourself in that way. Um, and also it's got to be incredibly creatively fulfilling to just be following your bliss.
Hmm. It
Yeah, you're
is.
like, yeah, it is.
And it's
Um,
freeing to be like mostly self-funded too. Like I don't have to, adhere to a certain guideline of somebody else telling me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something.
hmm
And when
hmm
I first started in AI, there was Discord groups that I got
Yeah.
invited to where people are like, if you weren't making what they were making and helping feed their algorithm, they were not ready to support you. Um, and those people are still in AI today. I still see them. They're
Oh,
incredibly successul, but I
wow.
know how they've gained that success, and it's just not a model that I personally prescribe to. So I tend to find other creatives that are doing the same thing that I'm doing and kind of going all in on their own voice and their own creativity and their own style. And I find it to be so much more rewarding. And honestly, it's content that I actually watch. Like,
Mm,
there's a lot of content I can't get through like
mm,
the first 2 minutes of it. But then there's people that I see that are making their own thing, and I will watch the entire
mm.
video, like the entire film.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little jaded like that as well. I've got to be honest. A lot of that has to do with actually having a film festival and the amount of stuff that I see come through. And also sometimes my empathy gets the best of me and I'm like, oh man, it's not really that good, but I can, you know, because you know what? It's a big moment for people's lives.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I just think life is too short to not bring joy. And I've spent the last however many years supporting others and amplifying others. And that's even really, again, what Engine does, not to like sit here and talk
Hmm.
about it, but the whole idea behind it is ownership so that
Hmm.
you own your IP and then you can have direct contact with the people that love you like you do on TikTok, but like also you can offer them revenue share and things like that,
Hmm.
which I think is really important of people that spend so much time making fan fiction and they make incredible things, but then maybe they get nothing out of it or
Hmm.
not even acknowledgement. So I'm
Yeah.
just, there's a lot there that I think that there's enough in the world to share. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I've had even a
and
hard time with my feature films. Like I
yeah,
did a backstory, like my second Whispers in the Dark film, and even when I did Rapture in January last year, like I thought it was very avant-garde. I thought a lot of people weren't going to understand it or get it. Um, and then I found out later on people were really kind of into it. It was Curious Refuge said it was
yeah,
one of the best features of last year, which I was blown away. Like I was just like surprised, you know what I mean? Because it's so different, but it resonated with people. So it's hard when you're working on something for a feature length film as a solo creator. I mean, for me, that was like 8 hours a day, every day for 30 days.
intense,
Just
amazing.
intense, like and keeping to that schedule and like kind of forcing myself to like think outside of the box for every piece of it. And that's been kind of the hardest part to overcome is like, when you hit a wall creatively, sometimes you can walk away and figure out how to do it. But when you're under the gun like that and under the pressure, you have to like think creatively in a short amount of time. And AI is fast, but it's
Mm,
not immediate, you know?
yeah. Sorry that I got like a little distracted, but did
Oh,
you
it's
see
okay.
this meeting notes thing?
Yeah.
It like forced themselves in after.
Yeah.
Yes, the to get back to sort of like your ownership and like self-sovereignty has been like that's what actually got me in crypto in 2015 was the
Hmm.
idea of self-sovereignty.
Hmm.
And the reason I went the independent filmmaker route early on in my career and stayed in New York City instead of moving to LA at that time was because I was far more interested in being my own boss and
Hmm.
not, looking to somebody else to tell me what I could and couldn't do. I'm not sure looking back in hindsight that that was incredibly smart, but it put me on this pathway of like building out other business models and
Yeah.
building out other pathways, um and even that's what I like to discuss. Like that's exactly what you're doing, and you're leading and innovating and then finding. I'm not surprised that you're finding that people are becoming fans. I mean, I was a stealth fan, checking you out all the time.
Thank
What's
you.
he's up to. um
I have a lot of stealth fans. I wish I had a lot more like vocal fans. I have a lot of people that watch me, but the counts always don't line up. I've had people tell me that before, but it's actually interesting to your point about the IP ownership, and we've talked about like people doing fan fiction and stuff. Is
Yeah,
the you have to think ahead because if you want to create something that is going to be going to distribution somehow, it has to be yours. And you have to be able to point to the work and where the injection point is that where is it that you're injecting into this?
yeah,
And I think for solo creators, they actually have an advantage because I can point to like, oh, I made this music because this soundtrack needed to fit this scene, and
yeah,
I wrote this script and I made these characters. There's a lot of different places where you're injecting yourself into the technology.
yeah,
Um, and it is when you get to that point, it's very much like a tango that you're dancing with the machine, and you have to be able to know when to relinquish control and when to reel it in and give the direction that you need to. And I think the best AI creators in the space right now are ones who know how to do that dance well.
Who are your favorite people right now?
Jurassic Smoothie is probably at the top of my list. A's Alter is the reason why I got into
Yeah.
AI. A's is endlessly inspiring to me.
He was in
Um,
I can't remember, last year, I think. I can't
mhm.
remember. I think it was last year's Medican.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and then who else? Heavy Pulp is also another one. He's creating some really good stuff. And a lot of my friends inspire me, like Diane Afrofuchsia. She makes
She's
incredible stories. Like,
she's in this year's Medican.
yeah, she's one of my favorites. I was just chatting with her earlier today. She says hello, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
good. Lovely. She's lovely.
yeah, there's a lot of creators that I find inspiration from, but there's few that Glumlot is another one
Mm,
that he's the one who actually inspired me to create my own like styles initially
mm,
because his style is so unique and so ubiquitously him. He created this fold core and it's like it's a mix between like Bollywood and like old 80s and 70s like sci-fi, and it's these creatives that know how to do world building in a way where it's familiar, but it's so uniquely them and different.
mm.
And there's a difference between inspiration and reimagining and stealing. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah, of
Heavy
course.
Pulp, for example, I'll use his style is very textured and very Americana. Love that. It's very
Mm,
reminiscent to me of like old flipping through old catalogs.
mm.
Jurassic Smoothie on Instagram, very reminiscent of like John Carpenter horror, 80s and 90s horror style, but like the storytelling is so good within the very unique styling that he does. So it's like it's little things like that where people can truly transport you to another place. Like I feel like it, film has always been good about telling stories to audiences. I think AI, like when you look at the history of technology, like uh, TV started to replicate radio, and some of the most successful TV formulas started in radio, and then TV kind of became its own thing. I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of people are trying to replicate what film has been with AI, and I think what storytelling was able to do with film is for, people to tell stories and these different, environments and timelines and stuff. AI is bringing that to the next level where it's genuine world building to a place where it becomes interactive and it transcends any sort of medium. And I think a successful AI artist is not beholden to a single platform or piece, but that they're going to be known for the worlds that they build that you can interact with. And so I
Mm,
think what you're talking about with Engine, what other platforms are allowing creatives to do with, creating with their tools more freely, but being able to transcend any singular platform and to create a place that exists that people know it exists, even though it's not real life, is
mm.
where I think AI is ultimately going. Because there
Yeah.
will always be a consumer. There will
Yeah.
always be someone who wants to come home and experience a story or experience a world. Look at gaming as a multi-billion dollar industry. And so I think AI is going to be merging film and story and world building and gaming in a way that we just have never experienced before. And so now we're at the early pieces of like seeing that all being built. And the most successful people to me in the space right now are the ones that can pull all of that together. And like I
Mm.
said, are really like doing that tango well.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that I would say that the having a vision to be building infrastructure or like I'm doing, which is also an operating system, so it's both.
Mhm.
And but this is a vision that I've had since I've been building this since basically 2023 around my own franchise. I built it for my own franchise, in fact.
Mhm.
And then my partner was like, "What is that little bit thing right there?" And I was like, "Ah, it's just a operating system kind of pipeline thing. I'm an independent, built it
Mhm.
for myself." He's like, "I think it might be for more people than
Yeah.
you." But to your point, like I think that those of us who are trying to like capture the future or carve out the future, and for me, it's always, I mean, everything I built, literally for the last 5 years has been trying to create a better future for filmmakers.
Hmm.
And then when AI came along, it was easy for me to be able to point, like in one of my articles on Substack, I point to Tron. I'm like, in 1982, they would not allow it to be part of submitted for the Oscars because they thought
Hmm.
it was cheating.
Hmm.
And hi, and then now it's like everyone angry, but I'm like, no,
Everyone's angry, but then they're using it behind everybody's back. Every single person that's been in Hollywood that's been vocal against AI has
he's
been
using it.
using it themselves to
Yes,
get a leg up. And it comes down to the whole moat thing. Like
yes.
the new moat is more than storytelling. The new moat is, can you create a world and experience that somebody else can share? And so many more people can do that now. And I even see it with like hybrid workflows. I see hybrid workflows personally as a crutch between filmmaking and AI. It's the stepping stone between a
Ouch,
full. I
ouch,
know.
ouch. I'm
I
hybrid.
I know a lot of people that I respect are really in the hybrid
The
scene, but
holes in me right now. Your
they
bullets are
came from
hitting.
the film space, right?
Yeah.
And there is a place for it, right? And there will be films that will always use hybrid, and just like there's, films today that still use old technology. So like I always think of the sodium vapor lights. So sodium
Yes.
vapor lights were
Yes. Oh
used in
my God.
headlights, right? And
Yeah.
and then film and studios use the same lights because it created a sense of familiarity. Well, then
Yes.
in 2011, when all these street lights started becoming LEDs,
Mm-hmm.
studios adapted to match the real world look to it. But now everything looks kind of muted and washed out. But you still see people going back and using sodium, what is it, sodium vapor lights, I think is what they're
Yeah.
called.
I know
Um,
what you're talking about, but I can't remember the exact name.
yeah. And I always think of that because it's like just because technology gets better doesn't necessarily mean that something else is going to be obsolete. Betamax is obsolete, but we still use CDs for stuff,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, you have me thinking about my Luma lenses from Russia that I own. And own them, and like even my Helios 44, I own them because they have a very distinct look
Hmm.
that you cannot get. I mean, you have to adapt a camera in order to use these lenses in order to get a particular look that you're not going to get with Zeiss primes. And I love Zeiss primes, but if I'm looking for a particular thing and not necessarily anamorphic, but it's what the lens is made of
Right.
that gives it, its bokeh, for instance.
Right. Yeah, and
Uh,
that's exactly like that's why hybrid will always have a place for control and for very specific needs. I think the world that I'm moving towards with AI is being able to create all of that on the fly and
yeah,
to be able to do so digitally because
yeah,
I also
sure,
think about the creator who might have like a disability, who doesn't have the ability to go and to do these things, and they don't have the ability to create hybrid. Well, that person should be able to tell their story as well.
of
And
course,
so there should be accessibility options for someone who wants to do something like that.
yes.
And I think that's what the benefit of AI does is it should shrinks that moat a little bit. And I think it changes how we look at just media creation in general. I
Mm,
think, a lot of these studios have been spinning their wheels about streaming and,
mm,
the buyout that's happening right now. That's the
mm,
wrong conversation.
mm.
YouTube is the largest ad revenue, like by a mile. And they're not using studio budgets and they're
Yeah,
not using, streaming schedules or commercial. I mean, they're using ad revenue. But the content itself is people, and then
yes,
I remember the Time magazine when they had the little mirrored piece where the people of the year was us as creators.
yes, yes,
And how
yes.
how funny that we're now. I mean, that was back in the early aughts, and it's
Mm.
so funny how much we have developed into that now. And I
Into
think
the
there's definitely a reckoning coming with Hollywood because people just don't glorify idol worship the way that they used to. It just doesn't land the same.
I think that, you touch on something that I means a lot to me, that coming up in the business, not only as an actor and facing a lot of systemic gatekeeping, just being a woman and then being a queer woman and then the whole thing. I think it's really was what put me on this path to try to democratize things and create
Hmm.
a bigger table. My thing has always literally been, I'm going to build, if you say no to me, watch me build a bigger table and invite more of my friends to sit. And
Hmm.
that has been my mantra from the beginning of everything that I've done publicly. And the democratization of these tools, when you talk about even like the disability stuff, I used to say in the metaverse, and people would be like, why do you want to go play in the metaverse? And I'd be like, because there are some people like with a different body and a different
Hmm.
face. I was like, there are some people that have disabilities that they can make connections with people here that they can't go out in the world and make these
Hmm.
connections. Like there are just so many beautiful things that we've been able to do as human beings, you
Hmm.
know, with tech, right?
Hmm.
Without getting into like the horrors that we can also do.
Yeah.
Um, but I love that you see the trajectory. I think that the problem that the reckoning that you're talking about in Hollywood is already happening. I think when you abuse people the way that creators have been abused I mean, for years, and I can tell
Hmm.
you, coming up as an actor, turning into a director, like if you wanted to get anything made, you had to get on your knees and beg. And I'm like, I
Hmm.
am tired of getting on my knees,
Yeah. And
you
it's kind
know?
of like the abusive parent syndrome, you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
I see that in the AI space sometimes too,
Mm.
where because people were gatekept, they feel they need to gatekeep. And that's just not
Oh,
like
wow.
I've had people try to blackball me in circles behind in private circles, and I'm like, you can try whatever that means, but like also like at some point someone has to break the cycle, right? And
Yeah.
I spent all of last year, I hosted a weekly space on X every Sunday to have new creators come in and just kind of be a place for people to ask questions and share. And I gave a lot of myself doing that because it was like I turned into like 4 hours every week. Um, and it turned into, people wanting to talk about themselves a lot and less really about the craft and
Mm.
everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it gets to a point where like you just have to be open to other people's points of view. And I know that I'm
Sure.
not everybody's cup of tea, but at the same time, like a lot of people aren't my cup of tea either. So,
Listen, I did with the squad and with Film 3, I did over 700 spaces over the course of 4 years where I amplified others and I built community and did all of that, and only to discover that whatever people will not appreciate the free the structure and the free, like what am I trying to say? Like that's time that you don't get
hmm.
back,
Yeah.
right? And that's time you're giving to others. And I think it's really interesting that you notice that people start talking about themselves rather than like stay within like the educational part. Or I mean, I think
Hmm.
talking about yourself is really interesting. We're here and I want to know about you, and I love
Hmm.
that you're talking about yourself, right? But
Hmm.
but I also feel like that the spaces were like a more public conversation around like ideas or processes or things
Hmm.
like that.
And that's fascinating to me. Like
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
geek out on someone's workflow. I
yeah,
love like seeing something that I can't figure out how it's been made.
yeah,
I love those conversations. I find them very enriching. I
yeah.
don't find so much the like the I don't know how to really put it into
I
words.
know. I
It's
I
one thing to
feel you.
like it's one thing to like promote your work. It's another thing to like tout that like it's the best there's ever been.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that where the problem lies in where the space is today is that distribution has been slow to adopt creators, and it's getting better, but the opportunity is so massive. Like if you were to think about it in a given like a 40-hour work week, right? Or a 40-hour, week that someone's working, you're not going to be able to create enough if you're the best creator in the world, you're not going to be able to create enough content to satisfy what a TV network is looking for example. You figure, 24 hours in a day, a lot of channels are 24-hour broadcasting now, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity available to get your work on something like that is massive. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
competition. Like there is enough pie to go around, and not everybody has to be like the best.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have, I don't think I'm the best. I know I'm not the best, and I find that people that as they kind of raise up into the echelons, they tend to stop looking around and engage, maybe because they're too busy or whatnot. But there's something to be said about keeping your doors open to new creatives, similar to how you've reached out to me, because there's going to be new stories that come out and new styles and things that we've never seen before. And that's the magic of this technology is that you can create things that are impossible. I
I'm
do
telling you,
music
I'm
videos.
I'm so sorry, but I have to tell you that I saw some AI films that I curated that came in late, and I
Hmm.
saw them this week that I was just like, oh my God, the creativity here. I would never have put these styles together ever.
I
And
know.
then the storytelling behind it, then so like I was so excited. Like it's so
Yeah.
exciting.
And it should
You
be a celebration moment for us. I think that
yes.
there's such an opportunity to really like elevate everybody in the space that's doing great work because there's going to be opportunity for all of us, and there's no reason to kind of like hoard it, anything for yourself because there's such a huge pie to go around. And I think
There
that's like
is.
the new breakthrough.
There is. I mean, I just think that, what you touched on and what I touched on is that sadly there's always going to be some toxicity even if you've got the best intentions.
Hmm.
There's going to be whatever people are going to come at you like you said they came at you and
Hmm.
they're going to make up stories and do whatever. Um, I know that one of like the sometimes, and I always stay out of it right now, mostly because my partner's like, "Do not get distracted." but, but like I also see you and Dustin calling out people in the space as well. Over you do a lot of that over on Twitter.
I
Um,
am known to be a little bit of a sniper.
You are. I'll
But
be
my
like,
problem
what's he
is,
saying?
yeah, I make it very. I have a rule usually to not go after other creatives, um, personal attacks or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think more so, I try to concern myself with companies and bad practices.
Mm-hmm.
I have over 700 clients that I work with on a
Wow.
regular basis. And my largest client works in regulatory industries. And so the bar for quality is pretty high. And there's a lot of law around what I do where you just can't do things for ethical reasons.
Mm.
And so I take almost that same ethical standing on what I have to do here and
Yep.
apply it everywhere else. And yeah, that's where I kind of draw the line is like bad business practices. And there's a lot of people with a lot of money thrown around right now that have never run a business and they don't know, or they're outside of the US and they're trying to affect things that happen in the US. And we have very different laws. And
Mm.
there's ethical guidelines that I just personally won't
Mm-hmm.
cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I try to stick to factual information and I try to stick to like my experience of what I've experienced with it. I have this saying where I give people rope and I'll give you as much rope as you need. You're either gonna hang yourself or you're gonna make a bridge with it. So I give everybody some rope and just kind of see what they do with it.
Oh, Will, you and I are a lot alike. A lot alike. I also have been known to be like, I am so patient until I'm not, and then I'm done. And
Yeah,
you won't know. You won't see it coming.
yeah.
And then
I'm
I'm
the
like,
nicest person. I'm the life of the party usually, but I have a lot of patience, but once that patience runs out, it's not I have sharp daggers.
oh my. Yeah, well, I've seen them. I've seen
Yeah.
them on Twitter, and I'm just like, oh my God. But also, I have to say, I'm also not the most articulate person. Like I articulate really well when I'm writing actually, but
Hmm.
not like that. When I'm writing like one of my Substacks or when I'm writing a screenplay, like, and I think it's just because I tap in way too emotionally to
Hmm.
like get involved in like a Twitter squabble.
Yeah.
But when I watch like you or Dustin, you guys are snipers. I'm just like, damn, that is so smart what they're saying.
Yeah, I
It's just,
mean, my
yeah,
whole career has been about workflow optimization. That's literally what I get hired by companies to do is
what?
I go in, I look at how their company functions, and then I modify and help them come up with strategies to streamline what they're doing to still be successful and profitable. And I've
Yeah,
scaled, companies from zero to multi-million dollar companies before.
incredible.
And I still do it to this day, like during the day. This is my extended lunch break right now for us to chat, but you don't get this gray in your early 40s by just sitting around doing nothing. Let's put it like that.
Well, I admire your gray. I would say
Thank you.
I started at 28. I went pretty fast and now I dye it all.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I have a mohawk, so I keep
Yeah,
my
I love
mohawk
your
and my
mohawk,
tattoos. Yeah.
dude, like the super rebel.
Yeah.
Um, what is if you were, because I can't remember if it was Julie or Sam Finn was my first conversation in 2023, but the what we were trying to and educate people then, and I feel like we're still trying to now with the haters and the people that are using it but hating it publicly
Hmm.
and trying to like yes get that moat and that wedge in there quickly. What would you say to people that are cautiously curious? Because my feeling has always been, look, these are tools. Then
Hmm.
these democratize for you. Like it's no different for me than when the digital camera came and everyone's like, no,
Hmm.
it's not film, it's not film, but it actually gave more people the ability to tell stories.
Yeah.
And I also my other argument is a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a millionth, and you think I'm stealing something?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not.
I mean, I look at it, an analogy I would use is just like a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
A kitchen knife can be used to create a seven-course meal or to kill the butler in the back. You could use that tool either of those ways.
Colonel
And we
Mustard.
see this in
Sorry.
we see this in AI though, right? Like the
Yes.
biggest fear of anti-AI people has stems from the idea of deepfakes being created that manipulates reality in a way that is detrimental to the collective. That's the argument of anti-AI,
Mm,
along with like ecological concerns, power
mm,
concerns, things like that. But let's just take like that piece of it. There are people today that make very convincing deepfakes. We know they're deepfakes. You can see that it's done in jest.
mhm.
There hasn't been that we know of publicly people that have made deepfakes that have come off as passing as real life footage that has affected, any sort of uh, um, socio-political stuff. But even look in the Iran incursion or whatever they're calling it now. But Iran is
Oh, I was
making
like,
AI
you mean they're
videos.
memes? They're memes they're
Yeah, but I
amazing.
mean, but that they're making, Lego videos
Yes.
of this right now, right? So like there is, in my opinion, the tools can do that, right? But they can also be creative in a way that is new and what we're trying to build towards. And so I really try not to focus and give attention on like the fan fiction and the IP ripping. I've done it myself. I've made Christy Gnome a pig before. I've done it. There are things you can do with AI that, right or wrong, it's possible. But I think that for someone that's cautious of that, it's just showing them the way of how to be creative with these tools,
Mm,
and starting small. Yes, it has the capability of making awful content, but you can also make some really incredible things. I've been moved by a lot of stuff that I've seen before with AI. And I would hate for someone who's cautiously wants to dip their toe in it think that this is the world over here of deep fakes and stolen IP and things like that, and that's the end all be all.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Most people find me because they're interested in AI, and then they get in and find out who AI creators are, and then they find me and they're like, wow, this is incredible. And I
Yeah.
wish that style of like new creation was pushed more to the forefront, as I think some of us are building towards
Yeah.
doing, than some of the deep fakes and the cheap tricks that people go and use to be viral. And I think in time it will come.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything in time we knew the acceptance was coming, and and to take the hits early of the haters is just like just try to educate. And in fact,
hmm
I was one of the first people that Justine Bateman blocked when I literally just asked her to have a conversation around it. Block,
hmm
and that kind of sort of rigidity, it is not helpful
hmm
when I'm a member of the unions, and I'm trying to educate my filmmaking friends for years now, my actor
hmm
friends and all of that. um and I've always known they were going to come around,
hmm And what a
but
leg up we could have had. You know what I mean?
oh,
And I feel like there's such a missed opportunity with both SAG-AFTRA and with the writers' unions of
yep,
like, look, you were given access to these tools before anybody else. You could have helped write the code of conduct and help write at the time legislation that could have guided this in a way that is more ethical and open and
yep,
conducive to the creative arts. But because they fumbled that opportunity, now we're in a place where there any sort of regulation is frozen and it's pretty much a free for all. I mean, you have people in other countries that are making political content for the US that are feeding to a US audience. That's a shame.
yep,
Because they're telling narratives and things that are not the experience of US citizens,
yeah,
and it's being passed off as, viral content. I find that cheapens the reality that we're living in right now. And
mm,
as more and more synthetic media becomes popular, there is a real danger that we lose our our standing in reality of like what is right and wrong. And just because you're the few people that are shouting from the rooftops the right thing and the other people aren't listening doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong. And
oh,
I find
true,
that that's kind of the hardest part in being a creator and a solo creator is that you're fighting against this current of what's trending and what's popular for an algorithm and not what is meaningful and creative long term.
mm,
And I fight myself sometimes. I'm like, even wanting to make something because I'm like, well, it's not really going to deliver. And
mm,
you get into this trap as you get bigger as a creator. And when people have like followings, is that they want more of the same. And as a creative, you always want to create new. And I'm an innovator. I love innovating and making
mm.
something new. So when I have to go back and make my 30-second episode of Cryptid Dating Game, I can't imagine. Like I think about the Simpsons creators, or I think about South Park, and like how this little idea becomes this thing that morphs in both IPs. That yeah, they have the money now to do that, but God, you've been making the same thing for 20, 30, 40 years. That creatively you don't want to get stuck in a typecast, similar to how an
Yeah,
actor or an actress doesn't want to get typecasted.
yeah. We are running out of time, but it reminds me of when everyone, you're probably too young for this, but when everyone was angry at you too for changing like direction, and they were like, we're artists. We're just trying to explore our artistry,
hmm
and it didn't sound like war or boy or whatever.
Yeah.
So, um, and yeah, I mean, artists, that's what we're doing, right? If we're not, well, two things. One, I think we're trying to tell stories that are meaningful,
hmm
and to shape a better world.
Yeah.
Like,
And sharing a piece of ourselves. I think
yeah,
that's the
sharing a piece.
hardest part as a
Yeah.
creative is like you really take a piece of yourself and you put it on full display for people. I'm like I mentioned earlier, I'm like a naturally private person. And so
Hmm.
to have a lot of like the complex emotions and stories
Mm.
and things that I think about like out there for people to like judge and review and see, it's very vulnerable.
It is.
It's a tough spot to be sometimes.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful life, really.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was
Yeah,
just
thank you so
like
much for having me.
so delightful. It's such a pleasure, and I'm so glad to be able to introduce your work in
Yeah,
this
thank you
way
so
to
much for everything.
everybody.